Hey everybody, Mr. Burke here, and today we're going to keep reading Clementine and the Spring Trip. Here comes chapter 5. Last we heard in the end of chapter 4, Clementine and her dad were going to get some raw clams for her mom because she was craving those. If you remember, her mom's pregnant. Clementine is going to have a little baby brother or baby sister pretty soon. All right, here we go. Chapter 5 starts now. Wednesday morning we had oatmeal for breakfast. "Tell me if you can hear me eating this," I said to my brother. I took a tiny mouse nibble, sealed my lips tight around it, and swallowed as quietly as I could. My brother bugged his eyes and clapped his hands over his ears as though the jackhammers from Boston Common had started up again, extra volume. I glared at him, which made him laugh so hard he tipped out of his chair. Her brother's being a stink to her, exaggerating a little bit, I think. One way my brother is like my father is that he thinks he is a comedian. One way he is not like my father is that he is never funny. "Never mind," I told him. "You'll have to eat with the fourth graders one day, and you won't be laughing then." The whole bus ride to school, Margaret re-warned me about the rule. Just hearing about all the food sounds that could get me in trouble practically gave me a nervous breakdown. Things got worse when I went into my classroom. After my teacher and I said yet and not yet, he called me up to his desk. "Clementine, I've arranged for you to partner with Olive for the field trip tomorrow," he said. "I can't. I'm already being partners with Margaret. I promised her," I said. "So, sorry. Margaret's teacher will see to getting her another partner," Mr. DeMott said. "I need someone reliable to partner with our new student." "Why me?" I asked. "Why not Willie or Lily? Why not Willie and Lily together?" Although actually I knew why not Willie and Lily together. Lily is too busy bossing Willie to boss a new person. "It's a compliment, Clementine," my teacher said. "I know you'll do a good job of making Olive feel comfortable on the field trip." I wanted to ask, "What about Margaret? What about me? Now who's going to make us feel comfortable on the field trip?" But Mr. DeMatz was already standing up and collecting permission slips. Instead, when he asked for someone to deliver them to the office, I launched my hand like a rocket. After I dropped the permission slips off, I knocked on the principal's door. Mrs. Rice struck her Mrs. Rice stuck out her hand for the note from my teacher I usually have when I visit her, but I shook my head. "I'm here to volunteer to stay at school tomorrow and spy on the party for you." "The party?" Mrs. Rice asked. "What party is that?" "The one the lunchroom ladies and the custodians are going to have. You know, with all the great food the lunchroom ladies hide from us." "No, I don't know about any party tomorrow," Principal Rice said. "But what I do know about tomorrow is that it's your field trip." I heaved a tragedy sigh. "It's too bad I'll miss it, but the lunchroom ladies and the custodians are probably going to play poker and dance around," I said, making my voice extra tragic. "Maybe the librarian, too. And the nurse. Maybe there will even be kissing at the party. You know what spring does to people. I'd better stay and watch for you. My friend Margaret can stay, too. Clementine, the cafeteria is closed tomorrow, and all the staff have the day off. Now, I understand you're going to buddy up with our newest student on the field trip. Your teacher is counting on you. I think he's made a wise choice." Suddenly, my head was too tired to pretend anymore. It dropped down on Mrs. Rice's desk, which I think should have a pillow on it because talking to her makes my head tired a lot. "Is something wrong, Clementine?" Mrs. Rice asked. I rolled my head over so my mouth could move. "Margaret can't touch anything that might make her dirty," I said. "She needs me to be with her so I can do all the doing things for her. Also, I need Margaret with me because I can't do silent eating. I've been practicing at home and I just can't do it." I lifted my still tired head to look at her. "And anyway, I don't even want to do silent eating. Why do I have to care about something stupid like that? I want to stay in third grade forever." There's their conversation they're having. Mrs. Rice looks like she can't believe what she's hearing. Principal Rice rested her cheek on her hand, just like in the picture. "You're not excited to be a fourth grader next fall?" she asked. "What's going on?" I explained everything that Margaret had explained to me about the fourth grade rule. I even added the horror faces Margaret had made that had scared me so much so she would understand. But when I was finished, Mrs. Rice only shrugged. "I agree with you about that rule. What do you think you should do?" Which meant that even though she was the boss of everybody in the school, she didn't have any good ideas about not getting bossed by other people. So I pushed in the chair and told her I was all done being there. "See you tomorrow," Principal Rice said. "Okay, fine," I said, but it wasn't. When I got home from school, I plunked myself next to the window to look for birds to draw for National Draw Bird Day. No matter what's wrong, making art always makes me feel better. Right away, I saw something that would make a great picture. A pigeon struggling to peck apart a bagel out on the sidewalk. Mrs. Jacoby on the 7th floor dumped Cheerios out for the pigeons every day, and this pigeon looked like he was thinking, "Wow, this one is gigantic." A bagel does kind of look like a giant Cheerio. I borrowed a big piece of paper from my mom. There she is. She found that pigeon. I borrowed a big piece of paper from my mom, who was working on her own drawing, and I laid down on the floor to work. Let me tell you, it is not easy drawing the "I must be dreaming" face on a pigeon, even for someone like me, who is practically a famous artist. The beak kept looking all cribbled up. As I was erasing it for the third time, my father stuck his head into the living room. "Clementine," he said, "we've had a call from the Pentagon." I jumped up and saluted. "We'd better go," I answered. My mother threw her hands up in the air. "What is it with you two and this Pentagon joke lately?" she cried. "I don't get it." "Sorry, top secret mission," I told her. "National security." My mom shook her head, and I followed my dad out to the basement. We went into the workshop, and I closed the door behind us. "You can't be too careful when you're working on the Pentagon," I reminded him. My mom thinks we are kidding when we talk about the Pentagon, but the real joke is that we're not. The Pentagon is an actual thing, just not the one near Washington that's filled up with army people. Our Pentagon is a secret present my dad and I are building to celebrate the new baby coming. Our Pentagon is a table. One that will be just right for our new family because it has 5 sides, one for everybody. It is not that easy building a 5-sided table, let me tell you. The big problem is the corner angles. They aren't square, the way they are on regular tables. I was the one who finally figured it out. "Look, Dad," I said after we'd stared at the picture in my math book for a while. "A pentagon is really just 3 triangles put together." My dad turned the book around and around, but he still didn't see it, so I drew it out on a piece of paper. There's the 3 triangles put together in the pentagon. My dad ruffled up my hair and grinned when he understood. "Genius, kid," he laughed. "So a triangle has 180 degrees, and there are 3, which means 540, I prompted. "A pentagon's corners add up to 540 degrees. I think you're right. And 540 degrees divided by 5 is 108 degrees, I figured out." "Genius, kid," he said again, nodding. "I got me a genius kid." My dad pulled the blanket off the pentagon. It wasn't a table yet, but you could tell that's what it was going to be soon. The 5 legs were ready. There it is. The Pentagon table in progress. The 5 legs were ready, cut the same length, and sanded until they were smooth. The top was a beautiful piece of wood we had rubbed with oil. "What are we doing today?" I asked. "Assembling the skirt," my dad said. "The table skirt is made up of the boards that run perpendicular to the table top, parallel to the perimeter just beneath it." He kept going with his la da blah blah carpentry words, but I studied the plans instead. "I get it," I interrupted him. "The skirt is the part that hangs down under the top like a skirt, that the legs stick out from, like a skirt." "Well," my dad said, "well, yes, that's a better way to say it, I guess. Now, what we are going to need are a saw and a drill and a pencil and some clamps. We buckled on our tool belts and got to work. Let me tell you, it is very hard to hold boards together, to clamp them, and then mark them and drill the holes. Finally, I dropped the drill. "I can't do it," I cried. "My hands are too confused." "One at a time," my dad said. "One tool, one hand, one piece of wood, one step, one at a time." I held the board with one hand. My dad placed the ruler over it. With my other hand, I marked the spot to drill, and my dad was right. One tool, one piece of wood, one step at a time, we built the Pentagon's skirt. Just as I was hanging up my tool belt beside my dad's, I heard the elevator clunk to a stop. My dad and I threw the cover over the Pentagon and closed the workshop door behind us. It was Margaret. She had a pinched down, don't cry mouth, and she nodded at my apartment door without saying anything. I let her in and then followed her to my bedroom. "What's wrong?" I asked. Margaret sank down onto my bed without even placing a germ-protective towel on the bedspread, something I had never seen before. She must really be upset. Just look at the way she's hunched over. "My mother and Alan aren't just Twitter-pated," she said. "They're getting married. And Alan's moving in." Mitchell only said, "Oh, cool," and then went off to baseball practice as if it was no big deal. But it is a big deal. It's terrible. "But I thought you didn't mind Alan anymore," I said. "I'm used to him now," Margaret said. "It's not him I mind moving in with us. It's his pipe. Alan's pipe will be living at my house, Clementine. Every time I touch something, I'm going to have to worry about pipe germs crawling around on me. Things were fine the way they were. Why does my mother have to go and change everything?" This winter, when I'd found out about our new baby coming, I'd felt the same way. No thanks to change. "Yep, change is part bad," my dad had admitted, "but it's part good, too," he'd said. "It's up to us to figure out which part to concentrate on." "Well," I said now to Margaret, "are there any good parts to Alan's moving in?" Margaret scrunched her eyes closed and thought hard. "Alan hates baseball," she said finally. "My mother and Mitchell are obsessed with it. Now at least we'll be on even teams for television watching. Hey, maybe we'll get to watch the Neat Squad some nights instead of the Red Sox." Margaret's favorite television show is about a team of professional organizers who go into people's messy houses and straighten them up while they are away. As if that would be a wonderful surprise to anybody. Once my father had joked that he was going to call up that show and tell them about my bedroom, and I stopped speaking to him for a day and a half. Anyway, I didn't think someone who left his pipe around everywhere was going to vote to watch a show called The Neat Squad. "Can you think of any other good things about them getting married?" I asked. Margaret said, so long that I started to give up hope. But then she came up with something. "When my parents were married, they never kissed. Maybe my mother and Alan will stop kissing once they get married." Margaret looked like she was trying hard to cheer herself up with this idea, so I didn't tell her the bad news. My parents were married, and they kissed all the time. Margaret got up and walked over to my bureau. She stood there looking over my stuff, her hands twitching. I have a lot of different sections, like the fruit that's my name. Watching Margaret at my bureau, half of my Clementine sections wanted to say, "Don't touch anything," but the other half of them were thinking, "Oh, let her play Neat Squad on your bureau if it will make her happy." Luckily, there was a knock at my door before I had to decide which half should win. It was my dad. He handed Margaret the photo he'd taken of her in the Common on Sunday. "Thought you might like a copy of this," he said. Margaret's whole body seemed to smile looking at that picture, which gave me a great idea. After she left, I got out my drawing of the pigeon with the bagel. I flipped it over and started on a new drawing. It took a long time because I gave each of the brass ducklings their own sparkle rays, and then put a bunch on Margaret too, so she looked like the sun. But when it was finished, it was beautiful. And although it was still a few days until National Draw a Bird Day, my dad and I went up to the lobby and taped it next to the display case. There's Clementine's picture of her friend, shining those brass ducks. What a good friend Clementine is, trying to cheer up her friend. Hopefully she can extend some of that good friendship to Olive, the new student. And that is the end of Chapter 5. I hope you're enjoying it so far. I can't wait to read Chapter 6. Thanks for listening, everybody.